Again.
We are back. Everyone, thank you so much for dealing with us. There was a dumb thing, and Greg should be. You should hear Greg now. And
Can you hear me?
um,
Can you dig it?
no,
No. Old school Shaq reference.
yes, all the shack.
Okay. Now we need our beta testers back in here. Let's wait for chat to get to
Yeah,
hop back in.
chat to populate. Try new technology. They said it would be great. They said.
uh, I like how the stream came back up and our send stars auto comment didn't even get up there, and Steve goes, "Gregson, you're muted."
That was even before I
It's
hit
from
the
before.
button.
I know it's from before. I know. That's great. Can you guys hear me now? Please let us know on Facebook as well as on YouTube. Um, Thank
Welcome
you,
back,
Doug.
Doug. You are here. You are the general. Can you hear Greg?
Yes,
so it
I'm
was my
alive.
so my dumbass was in fact the problem.
Yes.
Fantastic. So
And now that something isn't my fault, Chad, how dare you with
I
something in
know for the
technology?
first time in
Brutal.
several thousand times. I mean, it was your audio that was muted, so ipso facto, you broke it.
In a way, it is my fault in a roundabout way. But we
Technically,
left off. We left off with what we were going to talk about was next week. You had a bit of a thing we were going to talk about, and it was going to happen in this very garage that I'm sitting in.
yes. So just for the podcast, hello and welcome back to Shifting Lanes Garage. My name's Chad. With me, as always, is my partner in crime and owner of a slow car. I'm just kidding, Greg. How you doing, buddy?
I like to say moderately quick car. Thank you very much. I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. And if you're listening to this podcast, thank you so much for listening to it. Appreciate you. If you want to see us live and you want to actually watch us do this, check us out on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel, Shifting Lanes Garage. It's our second channel outside of Shifting Lanes to do this and other fun stuff. And we do this usually Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 8:40 or 8:50 or whenever my kids decide to go to
Precisely.
bed.
Actually, my car is in my imagination, Doug. So technically, it's faster than everything. Um, but to that point, and as Greg said, we are live every Wednesday evening, Eastern Standard Time, roughly around 8:30, depending on why Greg's or when Greg's financial drains go to sleep.
What you meant to say was tax breaks.
Yes, and I'm sure that offsets the cost of children.
Shh, details.
But at any rate, next week you are definitely going to want to turn into the live show because we will be unveiling my brand new car, or new to me, I should say. It is. I'm both excited and horribly impatient because effectively the figuring out shipping of this car took longer than the entire sales process. So that was moderately annoying. But we will be live. We'll be on. I will be on site, and behind Greg will be that car, and
Yes.
we're gonna run some tests. It's up, and hopefully get this ironed out. But we will hopefully have an opportunity to do kind of a walk around with her, and everything because it's. I like I said, I am extremely excited, and if you didn't hear me the first time, seeing as how Anthony and Doug, and I don't know about the third, but the two of you are in chat, please, please, please do not spoil the surprise. Your bribes to not do that are in the mail. They should be arriving to you in the next couple days. Steve's asking me, was I right from earlier? I can't even remember 15 minutes ago. My brain power went to fixing audio, and it just deleted everything else out of existence. So, if you want to remind me, please go ahead. You guys are welcome to try and guess. I'm not going to give any hints. I'm not going to say yes or no. I'm not even going to give you a reaction to any of it because I do want it to be a surprise. I will say this about the vehicle. It will, when we're done building it, be more powerful than my old Mustang. My now crispy Mustang.
That's right. Yeah, crispy Mustang.
So
Yeah.
it will be. I am excited for that. I'm excited for the car. I've already started talking to Blue Sky about the build and the ideas and the possibility for everything. So, but as for tonight, Doug probably sold him an XC70. What about me says that I would absolutely buy that? Nick, he can speak. We're just not allowing it. Bricklin SV boosted Coyote, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Doug.
Yes, I am. I can't speak. That the yes was to that I can speak. I'm sorry. I'm muting myself because in the background, my wife is actually building a craft project in the garage with me for the local library. She works at our local library, and now she is a master's degree recipient and fully graduated from Rutgers Masters of Information with a focus in library science. So congratulations to her. And with that degree, she's building a fairy house. So
hey, but she now has actual documentation that actually say she is smarter than you. So now instead of just, instead of just sitting here and being like, well, and having to explain it, she could just have this picture on her phone, tap it, and
she can lord her master's degree over me. And yes, Chad, you are 100% correct. She now has documentation that she is smarter than me. Yes.
Not that 100%. She ever wasn't.
I love that. That's great. So yes, she's done now. We have the setup. That's why I was on mute, and you probably didn't hear me for a hot second there. So that's why. But yes, the audio foibles have been solved, and I am now here live in living color or in living radio waves, however you want to take it.
Live and in living color, an old sketch comedy show from back in the day.
I like that. I like that Steve goes, congratulations, and Anthony just goes, ah, nerd. That's great. Oh man, it's hilarious.
So tonight we are going to actually talk. We're going to do a Carlisle recap.
Yes,
we are going to do. We're actually going to do a Carlisle recap. There may be a unhinged TED talk by yours truly at some point during that. Let's face it, there absolutely will be one because I was beyond triggered by something that happened there this year. And it sent me into a blind rage. And if nothing else, this is my therapy. With all of you as my therapist. So that should give you a bright idea of just how stable I am right up in here in the old squishy neat brain matter. But
car therapy is the best therapy.
But before we get into any of that, I came across some pretty interesting information today while I was doing my usual let's research weird and interesting concept cars for the short form content that I make. Now, if you've been watching, you know that I just recently did one where they put a 9.9 liter in an SN95 Mustang that was running 10s back in the mid 90s. But today I found something, and I wanted to turn it into a trivia question. And I think so before I ask it, Greg knows the question, but before I ask it, I want to be, Greg, I believe my horse in this race is that Doug knows the answer to this. Who's yours?
Ooh, I would probably say the same, but just to be different, let's see, who do we have on stream? I'm trying to get back to
Anthony, Nick Xander, Steve, Brian. What's up, buddy? How you doing? That's just in there. But while Greg picks a horse, again,
I'll say Anthony.
Fantastic. So as we all know, Greg is currently building not one, but two Volvo 2, 4, technically 5 wagons. And as a lot of people know, is that those in the early 80s came from the factory with turbocharging. However, that wasn't always the case. Volvo, to make prototypes of the turbocharged 240s, they contracted a company to do the turbo kit and tuning for 14 prototypes. So Volvo didn't have a turbo kit. They went to this company to build the turbo kit for them. They in turn spat out 14 prototypes with the new turbo that would eventually lead to a production vehicle. Who was that company?
Well, it's Volvo, so my guess is it's not just going to be like they contracted themselves or they contracted Saab or anything. So that would be like too on the nose, I feel. And Volvo's like super quirky, so my guess is they contracted like something weird. So my brain is going towards like Cummins.
Wrong, but you're not as far off as you might think. Porsche?
Okay.
No. Wow. Doug's first guess was Porsche. Steve goes Ford. Greg's guess was Cummins. I will give you one additional hint, and that is it wasn't an OEM.
Ooh, okay. All right. I'll go totally out of the car realm and say Boeing.
No.
Okay.
Again, your first guess was a little closer. You were kind
Okay.
of
Yeah, I'm trying to like think of like engineering prowess here, like kind of thing.
They while it isn't Cummins, one of the people this company works with is Cummins, but they're not exclusively.
So it's not an OEM, but my thought just went to Dodge. So,
No.
man, I don't know. Uh, I guess my last guess would be Garrett. Is Garrett American? Is it an American manufacturer or an aftermarket kind of thing?
I should know this, but I don't. So,
I think Garrett's American.
but Garrett
But-
is incorrect. Also incorrect.
Okay. All right. Well, that exhausts my guesses then, because I now have absolutely no idea.
So let's see here. Stroker? Nope. Anthony will know is my guess. Is Doug's horse in the race. I'm actually kind of surprised. So any other guesses?
Well, I'll make
this
one more
company-
random outlandish guess.
So-
John Deere.
No. Like I said, Cummins, diesel, think along those lines.
Gale Banks.
Yes.
Oh, yes! I totally they contracted Gale Banks. Seriously?
Yep.
That's wild. That's really freaking cool too, actually.
Yeah, so if this was
Gale Banks, the legend.
Yep. So it started in 1978, but for the early 80 model years. So it took the 2.1 liter from a thrusting 98 horsepower to an incredibly over the top 127. However, the goal was not to add power; it was to add punch or drivability. So if you remember those, if you've ever driven a car from that era, especially a small one with a 4-cylinder, they got great gas mileage for the day, but they were absolute pigs.
Right.
They didn't go. They were just good on gas. Like let me put it to you this way: today's fuel and cars that focus solely on fuel efficiency and are internal combustion only would absolutely roast the cars of the 70s. Which, again, any car from today, put it in the same class as a car from the 70s, it should roast it, right? I'm not trying to say that, but Gale Banks was actually one of the forerunners of turbocharging. He actually developed the first ever computer controlled turbocharging system for an automobile.
Man, that's cool. I didn't know that.
So it's pretty dang interesting, and like all this stuff that like Banks like, and here I'll do this. There's the prototype turbocharger and stuff from Banks. Like I said, I would never think of that, but like Banks, we know them now for diesel, but he was a huge tremendously influential engine builder in the 70s and 60s before he actually started getting into diesel and everything like that. But I just thought that was pretty interesting, and something I didn't know. And of course, Anthony's like, specifically speaking, this.
Yeah, I mean that he's not wrong. Banks performance plus or times Volvo is just awesome. I mean, that's pretty cool, honestly. I didn't realize, and I had no idea he was one of the like basically the godfather of modern automobile turbocharging. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and like the weirdest thing is that I learned that again. I was doing research, but I was also like, uh, how I operate is, oh, let me read about this, YouTube. Let me read about this, YouTube. So I was like looking for some stuff here and there, and then I was actually watching when this came to light. I was actually watching a Brian Shaw YouTube video. Now, why that is so out of left field that this sort of came to me from that was because Brian Shaw is a 4-time world's strongest man.
I was gonna say, I know the name Brian Shaw. Is it the same? Is it the same guy? Yep.
You know,
Cool.
and he was getting his 7.3 Power Stroke Excursion built by Banks for because he lives in Denver. Denver, as everybody knows, is the Mile High City, and it was not good air, so to speak.
Right.
I mean, Sean, with your vehicle and the way it is set up and the amount of time you spend with it, simply that is content gold. And but it's one of those things I tell anyone who's ever looking to make content is it's something you got to stick with, right? So if you're like, because so many people put their first video and it's like, oh, I got 7 views, and then they stop.
Right.
You know, we're by no means big by any stretch of the imagination. But we're bigger than most. You know, I think having close to 100,000, or I think having 100,000 subs on YouTube puts you in like the top 1 or like it's like 1 or 3 percentile. I forget the exact statistic. So, because most people try it and quit because it can get frustrating when you put all this time and effort into something and nobody watches. But
Right.
your car is cool enough, it's unique enough, and I'm sure between everyone who's in chat right now, that's at least your base viewership right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, my biggest issue is affording the upfront cost for Starlink internet. I mean, you have a cell phone, dude. Cell phone plus CapCut, you're gold. So all you need is cell
100%.
service.
I will say
don't know
that
if you're still on a rotary cell phone down in West Virginia, but
I will say that you're pretty spot on with the number of the percentile. There's a great website called socialblade.com where you can kind of go over there and look up any YouTuber you want. It's all public information. They sort of just skim public data on viewership and things like that because views are, you can go look at how many views are on a video unless that creator has the views turned off, which is an option on YouTube. But 99.99999% of all YouTubers have the views turned on. But if you go there and you look at our thing, we're in the automotive category. And for the automotive category, we are now in the top 2,500 automotive channels in the entire world for subscriber rank. So we're now 2,463rd on main channel shifting lanes. And if you combine both, we're probably closer to 2,000. So that's pretty cool to see. Actually, no, I'm wrong. So sorry. That is 2,463rd out of all YouTube. Autos rank were 1,022nd on the main channel. So that's pretty cool to see.
oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's,
Being almost in the top 1,000 creators for automotive and top 2,500 globally. It's pretty neat on the main channel. And like I said, combined with the other one, with the one you're watching this potentially watching this stream on Shifting Lanes Garage, combine those two, we're definitely in the top 1,000. We don't have the channel rank yet over there, or the channel type on Social Blade for Shifting Lanes Garage. I think it's just because the channel is newer and it doesn't have enough videos to go by. But yeah, pretty cool to see. Gotta be honest.
Hold on, something just blinged in my ear.
I heard it.
Alrighty. Sorry about that. But yeah, to kind of just end the content inspiration, is this right here is everything you need to make a very good YouTube channel, Instagram, pick a social media, right? Like that's literally all you need.
100%.
And you can do that. Now, like Daily Driven Exotics, they use a cell phone. It's in a carrier so like they can get the stabilization and like the actual filming and stuff. But this camera is better than a GoPro. It's almost as good as like a DSLR, but it has no mechanical zoom functionality. Digital zoom works, but what have you. You don't need it. This, like for example, when I go to film all the stuff for the new car, it's going to be done on this.
Yep.
So
you don't need anything else now. And there are plenty of microphones out there for iPhones that if you really wanted to get like more in depth with it, you could. The microphone on this thing is more than sufficient unless you're shooting in like a big warehouse or wanted to shoot like across the room, then like getting like a lavalier mic or like a handheld or something like that. But they make them and you can just use them and they're all plug and play now, which is awesome. So this literally is all you need. It shoots 4K 60 frames per second and it has for a long time. Like you don't need anything else, honestly. Like cameras are cool. And if you're like, if it's your main job, you know, getting like a DSLR, cool, do it because then you can take cool pictures as well. Although obviously iPhones take pictures, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like a DSLR is always going to get better picture quality than an iPhone just from the initial shot. Editing is a totally different story, but you know, sure, go get a DSLR if it's your main job. Also, business write-off. So, but if you're just doing your own thing, agree. All you need is a phone. That's it.
exactly. So I guess now would be a good time to transition to Le Carlisle. And
yes,
before we get into me,
and your rant.
yes, it's a good one.
I'm really excited.
One. You ever like? I haven't been preparing for it, but do you ever like sit here and say like, I wanted to react to so many of like our private DMs, and you're just so angry at something that it just immediately is just like lines learned. Don't have to memorize crap. Like it's there. Like it's a very, very. We'll get to that, Greg.
Yeah.
Before we get to the topic you sent me, what were your highlights of what I heard was a very rainy Carlisle?
Yes, it was insanely rainy. First highlight was seeing all you guys that watch the stream and listen to this stuff. So that was very cool. Met Sean Ford, who's on chat all the time. It was wonderful to meet Sean. Saw Doug and Anthony again, which was very cool. Doug also had us out to his homestead after Carlisle again to do a nice movie on the barn wall outdoors, which was very cool. Just beat the rain there. As Ford versus Ferrari was ending, basically, it started to rain. So we just beat that. So that was fun. But obviously seeing you guys and meeting a couple more people was obviously really, really cool. The cars were very good this year. Friday was a bit of a wash, but Saturday the weather cleared up for pretty much the whole day. I think we had like a little drizzle in the morning, and then it started to rain again um, when I when we left to go to Doug's for the movie. But it was very cool um, to see the cars that came out, because the cars were, I'd say the cars on Saturday this year were very eclectic, and a lot of things that I'd never seen before came out, which is very cool. And if you don't know what Carlisle is, it's basically just a big field and fairgrounds in the middle of Pennsylvania, in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. So that's what it is. So it's nothing really like grandiose or special. It's just fairgrounds, and people bring cars out. The reason to go is cars and people, not the scenery. So you're muted. What did you say?
You said the reason you go is for cars and people,
Yeah.
not the scenery. And I was like, and not coffee.
Correct, and not coffee. But the cars were very good. In the Volvo section, obviously, because that's where I go and park, clearly, because I have a Volvo. There were a ton of really nice cars. A couple that stood out were basically every VR and SR, V70R and S60R known to mankind from the P2 generation was there. So many of them. There probably were like 40 or 50 of them there, more than I think I've ever seen, which is very cool. They also had a P3 generation. So think like 2012, 2015-ish XC70 with the Volvo V8 swap into it, which was pretty awesome. And apparently the way they did that was they swapped over every module from an S80 into it, which is just a really wild thing. They also had the what's it called? They also had a P2 XC70 with a V8 swap as well. That one, I don't know how they did that one, but I would imagine it's either a similar scenario or just a wiring thing. And that was pretty much it. Everything bolted up. They said that they did minimal modifications. The one in the P3 generation took 2 days just because it was a whole bunch of stuff. The XC70 swap took them 4 hours. That is it. And I'm like, do you guys want to come do that in my garage? Because that sounds like something I want. But that was really cool because very few cars in the Volvo realm have that motor swapped into it. So seeing the V8 in other platforms is really, really cool because that's a cool engine. You know, it's a 4.4 liter Yamaha V8 and it sounds ridiculously good straight piped. So also very cool.
It does. While you're
Yeah,
going,
it sure does.
I will be right back, Gregson.
Yeah, no problem. Go right ahead. Other things that were cool there. So obviously all the Volvos. I didn't actually get over to the Saab area, which I usually do every year, and it's cool because that's Saab's national meet is Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and the Carlisle Import and Performance Nationals. So it is cool to see all the Saabs that come out. Whew, excuse me, getting a little tired over here, but Saab obviously had a big showing. It's their #1 show of the year, and they won best club for the millionth year running because they bring out the most cars. But it's their national meet, so I get it. If Volvo Club of America did their national meet at Carlisle, I feel like that they would utterly destroy Saab, but they're unwilling to do that, and they have not kind of played ball yet. Either way, it is cool to see all those come out. Other cars that were there that were very cool. There was an entire Rolls-Royce contingent that was basically they had a tent set up. They had a bunch of old 70s, 80s era, and I think 60s era Rolls-Royces. And under the tent, they had candelabras and tents and a chef preparing the meal. So like the most Rolls-Royce thing you could ever hear of. But seeing that at Carlisle, where it's very rural, it is not Rolls-Royce country. Let me tell you that. It's a beautiful area. I would live in this area. It's gorgeous out there. It's rolling hills, amazing back roads, but it is not an area that you would expect to see Rolls-Royces in. And usually those people do not bring those cars out. It was very cool to see the Rollses there. That was amazing. And as snooty as it was just cool to see. There was also tons of different clubs there with tons of different cars. Saw a yellow, I've never seen one in person, a yellow second gen Viper GTS, which was really cool. It's just all yellow. There was no stripes on it or anything. It'll be in my vlog that I did from Carlisle, which should be out in a week or two. I just got to film the outro, and then I got to cobble it all together. But that is in there. There was a Noble M400 there that was so clean, and it was so cool to see. Again, a car I've never seen in person. That was really cool. There was also, yeah, sorry again with the yawning, exhausted from today. There was also, there was a Ferrari F12 there. Shockingly, it was a blue with a silver stripe, single stripe down the middle, like a thick stripe, about maybe yay wide, about maybe as wide as my head, with a tan interior. My God, it was beautiful. That for modern Ferraris, everyone says 812. The F12 for me, I feel like has better rear body lines. It's not as aggressive. And just as a front engine GT car, man, the F12 is really hard to beat for me. So seeing that in person was really cool. Obviously, they had the hood open with the big Ferrari V12 up front. That was awesome. But either way, man, those were some highlights. Walked around, saw a bunch of M3s. What else? There was an Audi Sport Quattro there, a red Audi Sport Quattro, which is really cool. Porsche had a nice showing this year. There were a ton of different Porsches there. Let's see what else. I'm trying to think of like the rows that I went up and down. The featured the featured building had some like wild stuff in there. There was I want to say it was a Gambala E30 M3. It was some crazy body kit on an E30. I don't know if it was an M3, but an E30. They had a Yugo convertible, because when I think of cars that I want to make less rigid, I think Yugo of all cars. It was convertible Yugo. Yeah, Sean just goes in chat. Can we all agree the convertible Yugo was the most terrifying car there? 100%. A convertible Yugo is something that really should not exist on Earth, and yet here we are. It exists. There were just some weird cars in there. There's stuff I'd never seen before or even heard of before. There was I want to say an Alpine in there that was just something that I'd never seen before, especially in the United States. Also saw a couple of cool Nissans there. Saw the new Z. Saw some GTRs, which was really cool. Always cool to see GTRs. I saw a car that's on my list of cars that I would love to buy as my next car, sidecar after this one. Chevy SS was there. I saw a C6 Grand Sport there. So Chevy Corvette, obviously, C6 Grand Sport. Anthony goes, Isuzu Impulse was there. Also very cool to see. Just in a very eclectic group of cars, as always. But some just wild stuff that I had never seen. So that's my Carlisle sort of roundup. And I think that is a nice place to sort of talk about the transition to what else I saw there, because it was the first time I had seen my old V70R in person since I sold it, and it was there. Lo and behold, it was there. The owner brought it out. The owner lives in Pennsylvania, but scheduling conflicts, he was not able to make it the last couple of years, and he's always wanted to come out. His name is Ryan. He's a really nice guy, and I got to meet him and his husband. He brought his husband out, which is really cool, and just like the nicest like dude ever. Talked cars for a long time, had some beers together, talked about the car, talked about life. It was nice, just awesome. And like, I'm really glad that I sold it to him, because I posted the car on a bunch of the Volvo forums or Volvo groups on Facebook, and I think a couple of people said, man, it's in really good shape. And I'm like, it is in really good shape. And I'm so glad I sold it to him, because he's a true automotive enthusiast that takes care of his cars and actually like did some of the stuff that I wanted to do that I didn't have time for. The tailgate wouldn't stay up, fixed that. He replaced the clutch, because we all know that I fried that at the drag strip. And honestly, that clutch was an unknown factor of that car anyway. When I got it, the guy that sold it to me said that the clutch was new, but either way, it was an OEM clutch and 450 horsepower in that car and an OEM clutch, ain't it? So it needed a new one, so he replaced the clutch. That's all nice and new. He just did like $5,000 worth of service on it, including like new plugs, new gaskets, the whole nine, new clutch position sensor. So everything for that car to be running tip top shape was um, was basically done, and it still looks amazing. It is just it's cool. It's a cool car, honestly, and I'm really glad that I got the opportunity to see it again. And this is all, of course, it is. That's going to be like the main theme of the vlog from Carlisle. Is I got to be reunited with my old V70R, and she looks good. She really does. It's to me, that's one of the more timeless sort of designs from Volvo that they've come up with.
It definitely looks really good. I will absolutely say that. You cleaned it up nice. I mean, let's see here. You know, it still has your old. Those are those Volvo OEM wheels? Or
No, they are. So they are. They're called vanilla performance wheels. They're not vanilla performance. They're made by an aftermarket um, wheel manufacturer called Linea Corsa, and basically they make a lot of wheels for different people and stuff, and they just rebrand them. But when I reached out to Viva, they had them specially made, and I think there was like 20 pairs or 10 pairs made because they had to do a bulk order, and I was one of the people that was like pushing it, like let's do this. But they're 19-inch. They are perfectly offset, so they meet each fender. There's no like spacers needed. They are just the wheel, and they're so beautiful and so perfect to me. Like that car was made for those wheels, in my opinion. But they are not. There is a Volvo OEM wheel that looks like them similarly, and also the IPD wheels. The IPD or IPD makes a wheel or did make a wheel that looked very similar to this as well.
interesting.
Yeah.
Just real quick in chat. Just real quick. Just a quick technical thing. Can you hear me? Is my audio fine? Apparently, I'm quiet on Greg's end, but I just want to make sure I'm good with you guys. While we work on that, I mean, look, man, this thing was always a timeless design. It was a cool car. It sounded insane for what it was. It's the reason why I want to, when we hit it big, I want to transplant a white block into something, you know, that isn't, you know, expected, right? You know, you expect it in a 240 or 245. You expect it in, you know, classic Volvos, yada yada yada. I would love to say, I've said it multiple times, I'd love to throw it in the back of a second gen MR2, a BRZ, an FRS, like pick a car that's like the first thing people do is swap the engine out. I would love to put that in there because people would just the sound, and then they're like, people would just be like, holy crap. And then all of a sudden, you know, that's a Volvo engine, like the mind fuck. I don't know if I'd go Fox that far with a Fox body, Sean. Oh well, actually, let me take that back. Fox body Mustang, probably not. Any of the other 72,000 different variations of the Fox body, I could get behind. The Capri, the Thunderbirds, the LT, like that stuff. Okay, like yeah, I could see that. White block and RX-8 because fuck you. I mean, yeah. Like,
I'd love to put a white block in an RX-8 just to see the angry Mazda people.
I don't think most
they
people
would be so mad.
I don't think you would get a lot of hate from Mazdas because like those are without question the most hated of the Mazdas. Or of the rotary powered Mazdas. But and Anthony touched it in chat. And thank you guys for for letting me know the audio is good. Appreciate it. Like I said, like we said at the beginning of the stream, we're trying something different here. But it should make for a lot more. It should make content, or not content, but like should make doing the stream and stuff a lot easier. It offers a lot more flexibility. It's a lot like there's just so many better things about utilizing a native video conferencing system from Streamlabs than it is just porting it over from Skype. In that respect,
Right.
Back to what I was saying. Anthony goes, Greg, you want that car back. I can attest that Greg did message me and goes, I kind of want to buy it back. Not kind of. It's like, I really want to buy this back.
Yeah, I do.
And here's...
I mean, seeing it in person it's different when it's just like out of sight, out of mind. It's also on the guy's Instagram.
Right.
Like seeing it in person, it's like it's a little different.
No, I mean I totally get that, but here's the one thing I will say, and I'm not crapping over these cars because I think these cars are insane. They're awesome. They're great little cars. But number one, been there, done that. Right? Like, here's the thing. The car, like you said, the car is in good hands. Part of me wants to buy my old C30 back because the guy who currently owns it, like, fancies himself an engineer, except he's isn't. Not. And the stuff he's done to the intake system on that and bastardizing the intake system, all this other stuff, shows a complete lack of any sort of intellect when it comes to, I don't want to use a big word like fluid dynamics, but like airflow. If you go in airflow and you have a 90-degree turbulent air, you have this. Now, I understand in the turbo engine, it's not a matter of smooth air. It's a matter of just get air in, compress it, and then get air in, let the turbo do its work, and shove it into the engine. I get that. But it's so bastardized. It's just like, look, it's not my car anymore. He could do whatever the heck he wants to it. That's fine. But the point I'm making is it's like, man, like I sold it to a guy who gutted it, took all the good parts off of it, swapped it over with stock parts, and then kicked it on down the road. Fine, whatever. I get it. That was a good deal for him. Totally would. I would potentially do the same if, you could get all those parts for 50%, right? But it's in good hands. This is now a dream come true for the guy who has it, right? Trying to buy it back and everything. I'm always of the mindset of moving forward, bigger and better. If you were to get a P2 again, that V8 swap you mentioned, I like that a lot more. And you wouldn't want to do it to this car.
No. This car's far too nice to do that. It's got a built engine, or at least a bulletproofized engine. So, that's not a car you'd want to do it on. What I would be more interested in mostly because of the way the car was set up, was the P3 that did it, because that is a very attractive wagon. It is, in my opinion, a better looking wagon than mine. V60 is attractive, but it still had that V70 wagon sort of thing. This is like a hatch wagon, which is cool. It's attractive. The V70 P3 XC, the XC70, it already has like the little body cladding on it, so it's kind of got like a factory wide body kit, if you will, if you lower it. This guy also had it on the same wheels that are on this car. He had it on 20-inch Polestar wheels with the Polestar brake upgrade up front and the V8. Not that power is really anything to write home about, but it looked really good. And I'm like, oh man, I could get down with this because it's cool. It's like modernish Volvo wagon, old school V8, Polestar wheels and brakes. I'm like, this is a really nice combo, quite frankly. You're muted.
100%. And, but if you could figure out a way to do the V8, do it with the manual, and keep the all-wheel drive and not completely shatter the angle gear.
Yeah.
Because V8 torque.
Mm-hmm.
And the instantaneous nature of that torque. I think that would be a much crazier project. Well, I don't want to say crazier project. I think that car would be like kind of combine all of the things you have been mentioning for your next car. Is it a sports car? No. Could you get it to handle at such a degree that it felt close enough to one to where you can enjoy it, you can drive it, and all this? Yes. Will it give you the visceral sounds of a V8? Yes. You know, all the practicality of a wagon, all that, and a really interesting build. And
Yeah.
because that would just be those things with a good exhaust. And from what I understand, you can boost them stock to about 650 at the crank. So, I mean, imagine a 550 horsepower at the wheel, all-wheel drive, manual wagon that sounds like a V8. Not sounds like, has a V8 and has the appropriate, a Yamaha V8. And, it's just, it's one of those things where that's where my brain went. When Greg said, hey, I kind of want my car back, my brain immediately went to, number one, you have been fawning over 3 or 4 separate cars for the better part of a year and a half, 2 years. Like, you have gotten excited.
Do the different thing.
Do the different thing. Because guess what happens, right?
Yeah.
You do the different thing. You have it for a year, maybe 2. You know it'll still be around? VRs.
Mm-hmm. True. They will be around. That's a great point that you made, actually, because it was another point that someone made on one of the posts in the Facebook groups was they said, don't do it. Leave the memories with the car as is.
Right.
Because the one person said, like, I've done this before, and it was never the same. And I'm like, that's a really good point, honestly. Like, and I told Chad, like, this is in our private chat, it is the nostalgia for me. And it's not just about the YouTube thing. When my oldest son was starting to form words, when he was 2 and 3 years old, this was the first daddy's fast car. Obviously this is now, but like I tell my kids or not tell my kids, but I say, guys, do you want me to sell this car? Maybe get an SUV or something else that's cool. Like I could get a 4Runner, big off-road thing. And they're like, no, we love this car. Don't sell it. It's a great car. And being a 6 and 4-year-old, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but they're like, no, we love daddy's fast car. But this what you're looking at was the original daddy's fast car. So that, to me, that pulls at the heartstrings,
Right. And
the other thing is like,
my counter to that was daddy's fast car. That is a perfect memory, right? They have only positive vibes of that car. Mm-hmm. An even cooler memory is, how old's your oldest?
6.5.
So guess what happens in 10 years?
Right. He could drive.
Well, you could get one. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say necessarily work on it together, although that would be fun. But you could get another one, have it downpipe and exhaust. It doesn't need to be built to the moon.
Yeah.
It's a Volvo, even from, at that point, damn near 30 years old. It's technically a classic car. So, like, if he drives it under I think 7,000 miles, you could insure it as a classic car. But,
yep.
But he would get the things he remembers, like the sound, the driving experience. Yep. He's not going to remember how fast it was. It was just, and then that would create a whole new set of memories that almost to see the joy on your face when you got this thing transcend down to your kid. And then maybe kid number 2 gets another one, or he's like, how about the Polestar, Dad? Like, you have ideas and options, and like it would just be a much cooler story, and it would make new memories and keep the memory that you had.
True.
Because I always look at buying one of your old cars as going back and dating an ex-girlfriend.
That's a good point, and that's inaccurate.
Are you doing it because like things have changed, or are you doing it because you're only remembering the good and you want that good?
Yeah, it's true. That's a great point too. It's that like relationship goggles from How I Met Your Mother. Like, that's 100% what it is. But there's also 2 things that I was also thinking about. One is the amount of money I've saved up for a down payment for the cars that we've always been talking about. E9XM3, C6Z06, F-Type R, blah blah blah. Like the big three essentially in my camp. But other things, like either way, that money is like for a down payment, right? Because I wouldn't be able to buy those cars outright. The other thing was I could buy this car outright and it would have no payment and blah blah blah. So that was something that also crossed my mind. What's that?
Is he even thinking about selling it?
Yes, that's the thing. He is going to be selling it because he said that he is basically looking to sell it and selling it, whenever. So before he listed it, he wanted to let me know and gave me basically like first right of refusal. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm probably not going to buy it back. So you're hearing it here first. I'm probably not going to. I will talk to him about it. I will negotiate a little bit with him just to see what kind of price he wants. He threw out a number at Carlisle. It was in passing. But, I do want to talk to him about it at least just to give him the respect there because he said, contact me in like a week or two. So I'll probably talk to him next week and talk things through. The other side of that is my oldest still doesn't remember this car because he was 3. So I was like, do you remember Daddy's blue wagon? It had like a tan interior. He's like, no. So it's a memory for me, but he doesn't even remember the car.
So he would remember the Polestar more.
100% yes. Especially if I continue driving it when he's like 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10. And, you remember your parents' cars a lot more at that point because you're in them a lot more at that point. So, getting shuttled to baseball practice and dance recitals and lacrosse practice and family trips and blah, 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 blah. So like, you know the cars more as you get older, obviously. So yeah, but he doesn't remember the car, but like, I think it's a great point. Like it's a good memory for me to have of, that was Daddy's fast car. And that's cool for me to have that memory and I can have that memory and I don't need to relive that memory by buying this thing again. So I'm probably not going to, and I'm probably going to do the different thing, mostly because, life is short and I want to experience a lot of different cars. And this car was cool to own and experience for 3+ years, which was awesome.
Counterpoint. If we are able to get 500 either members on YouTube or supporters on Facebook in the next month, you could buy it with that money, and at the end of the year, we give it to one of the original 10.
That's actually true.
Don't tell the other 490.
We would have to disclose that legally, though.
Well, it's not even a giveaway. It's just one of those things where it's like randomly, it's like, hey, this car has run its course the second time around. You're ready to get rid of it. Instead of selling it, we're going to give it to one of our OGs.
Yeah. I mean, that would be amazing to do. And like ultimately, I would love to get this to a level of being able to actually do that, where we like buy a car, we own it for a year, and then give it away to one of you guys. Like that would be sick. We're nowhere near that, but if possible, if we can 50x the amount of subscribers,
listen, all we need is all of the
doable.
supporters to bring an additional 50 to 55 new supporters.
Yes, very small amount of supporters.
Listen, as opposed to us trying to get
50 friends, period.
55 is a lot smaller than 490.
Well, yes, that's very true. But I mean, if we can make that happen, then we can make it happen. So something to consider if possible. But either way, in the short term, probably not going to happen, and I'm probably not going to end up buying this car back. It was very cool to see, and I will say that
I hear Doug just sold one of his cars and has some money, so he should probably buy it.
That's right. If and when this guy sells this car, one of the contingencies upon me saying no about first right of refusal is I want to know who's buying it, because I do want to keep track of it at least. Yeah, I mean, when I sold it to him, I'm like, when you're ready, let me know, because I want to be the first to know. And he's like, sure, of course.
That's good.
and I've kept in touch with them. I texted them every every quarter or every half of the year and say, hey, how's the car doing? How are you doing? He's like, cool, good, it's good. How's the Polestar? So we chat here and
How
there,
was
and
T-ball
nice dude.
practice?
Exactly. So yeah, no, that was cool. But yeah, so we'll see what happens. But I do want to keep track of the car and keep in touch with the people that own it, because it's a cool car. It's part of YouTube history, not in the sense of like Tavares's P1, like everyone's gonna remember that fucking thing. It's more of just like it's part of YouTube history. Like it was the first VR on YouTube that really like did the amount of views that it did.
Yeah, and then
And it
it
made a lot of
launched our
people buy
channel.
V70Rs, which is cool.
It launched our channel. Like, there's so much to it,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to taint
Yeah.
the good with, God forbid, like the car comes back, and then all of a sudden, like, it's an old car. So like
Yeah.
little shit starts happening, and you start getting frustrated and everything. You have positivity with that car, apart from the time you backed your Subaru into it. But
By back, do you mean let it roll into it? Because that's what happened.
I mean potato.
No, because if I backed into it, it would have been like a fender bender. This was a 3,200-pound car rolling at 20 miles an hour into the front end. Because it went down my whole driveway and into the grass.
Fun. But
Yeah, that was not good.
yeah, I've always been of the mindset: create new memories, or like cross another car off your list, or like you've almost done that, right? Like you sold this and you got the bigger, badder version of it in the Polestar, right? Like,
Yep.
which you haven't gone the same route as you did with this car, much to my chagrin. But at the end of the day, it's your car and yours to do with. But like that was something I've had to think about a lot: is which route did I want to go with my next car, right? There's comfort in the been there, done that route, but then again, it's I've been there, I've done that, and like as everyone can attest to, I mean, in this chat, I mean, I just had to sell a car to get back to 12. Like we all have that, like, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy. I loved that, but ooh, what's this? It's new, it's exciting, it's like anything new, right? Something shiny and new that you're into, you're like gonna gravitate towards it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And Sean goes, if I come visit you in New Jersey, I'll need a Jersey license plate before I leave. I think I have a few kicking around in my garage.
Yeah, I'm sure I have one or two around here somewhere too, for sure.
Worst case scenario, I'll just take them off of Greg's car.
Yeah. So with that said, Carlisle experience was great. Got to see my old VR. Got to see some really unique, amazing cars. And I got to live stream the exhaust competition, which is the segue into Chad's lovely little piece that he wants to talk about tonight. So with that, I will let you intro that, and I will be right back and return very quickly.
Yes, exhaust competition. So to put some collecting plates like Infinity Stones, there were only 6 Infinity Stones, or 5. I don't remember. Anyway, going back to what Greg said, and that is Carlisle's exhaust competition. The quick backstory to that is I competed in the 2023 exhaust competition and didn't even make the final. And they say it's all sorts of stuff. It's not just noise, it's quality of noise, tone. So like it could be a quiet car that has good tone and it's still blah blah blah. Like effectively, in my opinion, over justifying their existence as a exhaust competition judge, when it's really significantly simpler than that. Does it sound good at low RPM? Does it sound good at high RPM? Does it, whether it be a car that can only rev to 6,000 RPM or something that's like 9,000 RPM? That should be the criteria. And, look, I'll preface before I get too heavily into this rant about it. With that, I know it's for fun. I know there was no entry fee. I know there was no prize money. So it's I get it was all in good fun. But that being said, one of the things about my personality is that I am an incredibly competitive individual. It comes from the fact that since I could walk, I was playing sports, and I was the guy that didn't matter. I wanted to win. I wanted to do well, but more importantly, I wanted to win. Pick a sport, whether it was the sports I played in high school, baseball, basketball, football, whether it was baseball in college, whether it was a backyard game that we made up that was some bastardized version of like home run derby and horse, right? Like whatever. To today with like video games and things like that to even as something as simple as I go to the drag strip to time my car, but inevitably I will see another car there and be like, I have to be faster than that. I might not, I might be, but I need to get as close as I can. And even when I'm going for time, I want to put the best time I possibly can. And then I want to learn from it and get faster to where, whether it's me or whether it's the car, what is the limiting factor? Right now it's me by miles. But that said, I am a very competitive person. To Sean's point, he goes, I had 6 different people ask me about how I did my exhaust to get the sound. I did forget to mention I slightly reshaped the combustion chambers. That's all part of it, man. And that kind of leads me into the first part of this. As Greg mentioned, he live streamed the exhaust comp. So I went and I watched it. I specifically paid as much attention as I could to the 3 S550 Mustangs that they had there. And when Greg told me that all 3 of them made the final, that cemented pretty much what I had been theorizing all along, is that when it comes to like some of these cars, they were judging the badge, not the actual sound. Because, and as I will now demonstrate, so I'm just going to go through some of the Mustangs. Let's see here, desktop. So this is a GT500. So that has the signature NA or supercharged Coyote bite at the very top, which I personally like because it gives it a very race car-y feel to it. No clip sound, you don't say. All right, let's try this again. So this was a GT500, and for the record, I happen to think these sound very, very good. Hopefully you got it that time. But like I said, it has that Coyote bite at the top. Still nothing. Well, fuck you, Streamlabs. I don't know what the hell is going on, because this is starting to piss me off. What's my audio output? Let's try that. Realtek high def. The digital output. So it's speakers. Got it. All right, let's try this for a third time. The Shelby GT500.
The Mustang. There we go.
So, like I said, that was the 500. And so there's one thing. So Coyotes at the peak of their rev range have this bite that sounds very race car-y. which I love when they're supercharged or naturally aspirated. Turbocharging kind of takes some of that bite away, and it does sound insane. Like, to such an extent that with my old car, I was seriously considering trying to figure out a way to turbo swap it. Take the supercharger off and put a turbocharger on, or more than likely a twin turbocharged setup. Just because it makes such a difference with the Coyotes, and they sound fucking insane. So the Predator in this, for anyone who doesn't know, when it comes to Coyotes, the Predator block is stronger than a base Coyote block, but it's effectively the same architecture. Heads are based off of Voodoo heads. Cam profile is obviously suited for boost. Vic on YouTube goes, I'm curious on the sound on the MR2. Sorry, bud, didn't get that. This was more of a... all three of these Mustangs made the final. And this is more of sort of my unhinged TED talk here. Next up, we have a GT350. And one of the things with this, and is one of the things I wanted to point out, is to why I think these judges are woefully underqualified to judge. I mean, maybe they can do a hopscotch tournament. Maybe. But as far as an exhaust competition, I think they're wildly out of their depths. If they want actual car people and people who understand and have driven multiple different types of cars and understand what sounds good and what doesn't, and what mods sound good and what don't, and all this other sort of stuff, next year at Carlisle, especially for the imports, they should hit up shifting lanes and let us fucking judge it. Because I guarantee you, we are going to be magnitudes better than these guys. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if each and every one of them daily drove some form of Prius, Tesla, or other electric vehicle, because they sure as crap do not know internal combustion. The GT350. I want you to pay attention to what's said in the background.
This thing sounds cool.
This Mustang?
It should.
I heard the Mach 1 behind it yesterday. It sounded amazing.
If that thing is straight piped.
That thing is straight piped. Here's number 2. Who the fuck cares? Here's why. You know what a straight pipe is? It's exactly in the name. It's just the one pipe going to the tail of the exhaust. So it has no resonating. It has none of that sort of stuff. And 99.99% of cars that are straight piped sound like hot ass at some point during the rev range. Now, does it work for, say, NASCAR or race cars or something to that effect? Yes. You want to know why? Because those exhausts are tuned to be at the tippity top of the rev range. Therefore, that's when they're going to sound their best. But pay attention to this one. And I want you guys who watched the video and knew that stuff from last year to remember what I said about my car and my theory as to why then it possibly didn't make it into the final.
That thing's gonna be.
That's a GT350, right? Yeah.
In fact, I didn't know that immediately. It's a little embarrassing for me.
GT350 in the show. I missed it. I was trying to listen to the clip on the side. What did you say? It's hard to beat that blue one, because that blue one sounded...
I said, you asked, that's a GT350, right? And the fact that you didn't immediately know it on sight is embarrassing for you and your family.
It didn't look like one, because it didn't have any of the usual GT350 accoutrement. Like, the front air dam looked different. It didn't have the rear deck spoiler. At least I thought off the bat, because I'm like, wait a second, it had the badge. So I had to like do a double take and ask, because to me, when I was looking at it, and I was also trying to pay attention to the stream. So like, again, I have ADD. My brain is like, I can't do like 7 things at once. If I'm focused on one thing, I'm like, cool, can do that. Oh, and also in 5 minutes, I'm going to forget to do that thing and then go to the next thing. But right then and there, I was like, is that a GT350? It is. Okay, cool. And that's like how my brain kind of functioned there.
I know. I'm mostly messing with you. But so
no, I know.
In the future, the front bumper.
I had to give a little context, though, because I was just like, what?
The front bumper, the hood, the side gills, all give it away. Okay. However, there are conversion kits that you can put that on a regular S550. So,
which is why I kind of asked.
So, the dead giveaway that it is a GT350 or at least a fucking Mustang that someone modded extensively are the rear brakes. When the rear brakes fill up the back wheel, you know you're looking at a Shelby. But at any rate, here's a Shelby GT350 that the guy behind Greg thought was going to sound amazing because it has straight pipe. Here's how it sounds.
Insane.
Oh,
There. Once it got into the rev range, it sounded okay. But my God, that is the raspiest Mustang, especially an S550, that I have ever heard. And my theory back to last year, the 2023 exhaust comp, was that my exhaust, given that it had no resonators or what have you, I feel like if I went up to the judges beforehand and be like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, this is supercharged and it has a resonator delete, they would have been like, oh, wow, it sounds amazing. Final. Before I even ran. That sounds awful. That rasp sounds cheap. This thing, when it sings and it has a proper exhaust on it, is one of the best sounding V8s in the history of mankind. The straight pipe job that this guy did to it ruined that sound until what I'm guessing it got to about 45 to 5,000 RPM. At which point it's moving so much air that the vibrations in the exhaust get less and it actually starts to sound pretty dang good. It's very similar in that respect to the E46 M3 with the S54. Raspy as hell until you get to 4,500, 5,000. Then it starts to sound really, really, really good. That is a bad sounding Mustang. And it made the final. And last.
Oh, that one did not make the final.
Good. It didn't deserve to.
Oh, wait, no. No, sorry. Incorrect. I'm wrong. This was the final. So this was the final lineup, and then they chopped it at the first one. That's what I mean.
Okay, so this made the final. Once again, now we know, proving my point that these judges don't have the first clue what a quality exhaust is and what a quality exhaust sound is. They probably love the Evo 10 behind it better than they love the 9 through 1 Evos.
Yeah.
Because it's the newest Evo.
500 in the show.
Well, that Evo was the top
350
three.
in the
So
show. And we've got a Mach 1 in the show.
just
We'll see
FYI,
which
you're
one's-
spot on there.
So, once again, for your viewing displeasure, and it gave Greg a price. So here's the Mach 1. There. I mean, what the hell? That is... I will say this again. These, in my opinion, the reason these three S550s made it to the final, they saw a badge. And it wasn't just a regular Mustang, even though they don't have the first clue about the Coyote platform. I'm convinced of that. Is the Voodoo slightly different, or not slightly, is the Voodoo different than the regular Coyote? Yes, but it's on the same basic architecture and it has the best heads of any of the Coyotes, flow-wise. The Predator is like I said, it is a stronger block. One of the strongest, if not the strongest, stock factory block you can get on sale today. You can go to Ford and order that block, and you can put with the right pistons, rods, and even with a stock crank, make 2,000 horsepower. You put a billet crank in it, and that block with, again, it has sleeves, so it's not completely stock, but it has sleeves. Everything else, the same. 3,000 horsepower. With factory cooling jackets. So, if any of you know I'm going to forget his name, but he has a drag car. It's one of the fastest quote-unquote street cars. Races in all the street cars. Basically, definition of a street car is it's not a purpose-built tube-frame car from the ground up. It started life as a factory car. Brett DeSala, or I think it's Brett DeSala, something like that. His car, Snot Rocket. Events like Texas 2K, Florida 2K, and World Cup. They don't know what class to put this guy in because he is stomping everyone. Big blocks, LSs, Hemis, the lot. So that's the Predator. But basically, it's the same firing order as a Coyote. And it just has a little more displacement, and it does have the blower on sitting on top of it, which you don't hear in these clips, because unlike Dodge, we know how to make or get a efficient supercharger. Even though I do like Supercharger 1. Now remember, you heard all three of those. I will give the GT500 sounds better. But here's my old car. Can anyone here with a straight face sitting here saying that my car did not sound better by miles than the 350 and the Mach 1 there? If they had the right exhaust, they should sound better. Even though a Mach 1, basically stock Coyote. Stock Gen 3 Coyote with a slightly different intake manifold, a slightly different tune. Gen 3 Coyote. Both of those cars sounded worse than mine. So again, badge. I am convinced that they went and they looked and they did. This noise made almost meant nothing. They saw the car and was like, "Huh, that's cool. It's got the up badge. It's up badged, or it is the up level." I'm not going to sit here and say these guys up badged. They were legitimate, the Mach 1 and a legitimate GT350. So they have it in their head that, oh, those cars are awesome. Oh, straight pipes are awesome. And it was into the final, regardless of the noise the car made.
I'm curious if they made the final this year because there were less cars because it was so rainy. I don't know because I didn't enter this year. I'll probably do it again next year just because I wanted to take a year off from it and get back to our battle on it next year. But I'm curious because I didn't see a lot of cars. Like the final only had like maybe 15, 20 cars. Last year's final, I think, had like 40. There were so many cars. There were a lot. Like people were standing out there for a solid like hour and a half.
I understand there's part of
It was
the
a
quote
wild
unquote show.
Yeah, like
But-
I'm wondering if they did it on purpose.
But-
I'm not trying to condone their behavior of like letting them in, but I'm curious if that was part of the decision.
I mean, I'm sure there was a factor of it. I'm sure there was a time slot or what have you.
Yeah.
But the final wasn't that long last year. I can tell you that right now.
Okay. They also didn't need to have 3 Mustangs in the final. They could have picked 2.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There were 3 different variations of Mustang, and each one had
Sure.
a slightly different tone and everything. The GT500 did the exhaust right. I guarantee you he has mufflers. You don't need to straight pipe it to have a loud car. Newsflash, most high-flow mufflers are straight through. They will reduce decibel levels a bit, but Greg was right next to me outside the dyno room when my car was on the dyno. It is not a quiet vehicle. You know,
Yeah.
straight, but and again, I need to get it through most of your guy, like, and most of you are intelligent car people. Most of you understand this. Most of you understand what basic exhaust componentry does. Straight piping, just because Damon on DDE straight piped his Lambo, does not mean it makes all cars sound better. Most of the time, it makes them sound worse because there's no refinement to the exhaust. I'm not saying my exhaust was refined in any way, shape, or form. What I am saying is that the whole concept that just because it's straight piped, before you hear anything, oh, this should sound great. Have you ever heard a straight piped GT350? You just did. Sounded awful. What about a Mach 1? Sounded equally awful, if not more awful. And and I'll wrap this up because there's some pretty good points over in chat. So number one, Sean, you should not feel bad that you did not make the final of this exhaust competition, because I haven't heard your car, but just based on what people were talking about, I guarantee you it was more deserving than at least than the two not GT 500s. So don't feel bad. It's because again, I do not believe that they have a Ford Carlisle event. They know what a good Coyote sounds like. They know. So either those guys were on vacation, or they were like, we don't want the Ford guys because they might take away from some of the import. Which, fine. Get people who actually know their shit, though. Like, and again, I come back to the fact that this was for fun. There was no prize money. It wasn't like I built a car. It wasn't like some Cletus and Cars burnout competition where I built the car specifically for this one event, slayed it, and lost. I'm not saying any of that. It's all for fun, and it's in good fun. I'm just going to sit here and say that if you're going to be a car event, have actual car people doing the stuff as opposed to people, this other sort of stuff. That said, Sean goes, we need a Barra in this country. There are many Barras in this country. It's just there's no real support for them in this country. If you want a really cool Barra build, Adam LZ took a wrecked GT350 and put a Barra in it.
Which is just a sick idea. That's very cool.
Yeah. Sean goes, yours sounded better. Sound like it. No, its notes are breaking up in the upper to mid range. I don't know. There was a bump in the thing that I hit that sort of affected the RPM that I think maybe they were like, oh, it kind of broke up. Like, whatever. I also think that because if you go back and you watch that video, I cut it off. Everybody was like, oh my God, he's not going to stop in time. Fuck you all. You've clearly never driven a Mustang with the performance pack brakes. I had plenty of room. Doug goes, so you're saying last year I beat you because of my shifting lanes badge? They must not have noticed that it this year. I mean, look, I know you have, I think, an axle back on it, maybe a cat back. I can't remember off the top of my head. And maybe a tune. Your car sounds really good. It sounds really good. It doesn't have the volume, but it sounds really, really good. I honestly think that there was at least a minimum for imports to move on because it's an import show. If American Muscle showed up and they were like, all right, well, all of the American Muscle sounds better than all the import crap, people wouldn't be pleased. They would kind of call into question the validity of an import meet, right? So I get that. I would even go as far as sit here and say that I like the sound Greg's car makes slightly better than mine, to such a degree that this summer, the mod list for my Mustang before it went, caught fire, was do the carbon fiber roof and get a resonator on it, but one that wasn't going to inhibit flow. So there was a lot of research and stuff involved there. There was some placement. Jeff and I were actually going to start talking about that when, barbecue. So, Steve, what did you miss? A lot.
So many things.
I don't have the energy to do that again. So just rewind or watch this again on YouTube. Sean goes, my car is a simple exhaust. It's 3-inch turbo back with a bullet resonator and a tubular glass pack. I mean, that is a simple exhaust. And, to me, that's cooler than some moron putting a fucking straight pipe on a car. Like, I guarantee you, if Greg put a straight pipe on his car, actually, that might be a good example because it's turbocharged. And the turbo does do a decent job of sort of refining the noise. But I still don't think it would sound as good. Anthony goes, you're preaching to the choir. My Cummins truck came straight piped. So dumb. And I hated it. And quickly fit a straight out fit a straight out muffler for a Mack truck. Fair enough. Thanks for clarifying, Sean. And then Doug clarifies on his car. Yeah, it's just a catback with an intake, but yeah, not loud. Again, I would be okay with cars not being. I mean, because if it's a loud competition you want, yeah, then you want a Coyote that's straight pipe because those motherfuckers are loud, regardless. Except in stock form when the first generation came out, for reasons known only to Ford, they made them sound tame and terrible. But yeah, like you can have a good sounding exhaust and not have it, make passerbys' eardrums bleed. And Doug, I do think your car sounds great. It sounds like a slightly milder version of Greg's car, but it still sounds great.
I agree.
And I'm going to miss more. My ass tired. My job is getting to me amongst life. Hey, Steve, go to sleep, man. All good, brother. Like I told you before, brother. The fact that you can come on and hang out for a little bit, that's all we need. That's all we appreciate.
Hell yeah.
Not all we appreciate
it,
but we 100% appreciate it. And then Anthony continues with, it's all about tone. I agree. Now, me personally, I like tone plus volume.
Yeah.
But that said, above almost everything else, for me, it has to have a practical performance reason. So there was a reason I went with a 3-inch exhaust on my C30 as opposed to a 2.5-inch. There was a reason I made sure that the exhaust on my car that it came with when I bought it was a 3-inch exhaust, because I wanted dual 3-inch exhausts for flow. And my car with cats and a muffler made 705 horsepower at the tire. I'd say the exhaust did a pretty damn good job.
Yeah, I agree.
That said, I would have liked to have it toned a bit. Take some of the edge off of it a little bit. Not necessarily the volume, even though if that was the case, so be it. But, and I'm not, I say this all because I don't want to sit here and tell you that my car sounds the best of any Mustang. That's not the case. Turbocharged Coyotes sound better in my opinion. They just do. So it's like I said, to such an extent where I was looking at potentially doing a turbo kit. The problem is that even if I got top dollar for my supercharger kit, I was still $3,000 short, and then there was another $3,000 to $5,000 to install the fuckers. Problem I don't have anymore. But I will wrap this, and then I'm going for a walk because I'm riled up. Is if you are going to consider yourself a judge for anything, know the subject matter. Like, it should almost be blind. Like, they should put these judges with their back facing the cars.
That's actually a cool idea. I would love to see that.
And they just it's like car number 117.
Yeah.
Like, okay. And then the two criteria should be low RPM, high RPM, transition. Right?
Yeah. And then you get the high RPM going up the hill, and then you get your low RPM coming back down.
Well, not even. Your low RPM off the start, where both of the GT350 and the Mach 1 were raspy as balls. Once they hit the upper rev limit, or not the rev limiter, but they hit the upper part of the rev range, they sounded pretty dang good.
Yeah.
So of those, I would score the upper an 8 or a 9, and the lower, the Mach 1 a 1, and the 350 a 2. And the transition was halfway decent, right? So they would get a score of whatever those numbers add up to be. Boom, put it in. Boom, put it in. And you go from there.
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea.
So, and then if you're not going to do that, I think it would be cool to have actual enthusiasts, people. I'm not going to sit here and say it should be us, even though I think we do a damn good job. And I think you and I are slightly different enough to where we like different stuff, to where we would catch the range of
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah.
But I got to
want
assume
to-
bigger YouTubers do probably go to Carlisle Import. Like, I wouldn't have a problem if they were the guest judges. At least make it,
Yeah.
you know.
That'd be cool. I would love to hit the lottery and buy an LFA just to bring it to that competition and see what happens. Just to see what
if there's
happens.
one on Turo.
Yeah, yeah. Rent an LFA from Philly or Pittsburgh, drive it to Carlisle, put it in an exhaust competition, and drive it back. Because at that point, I'd just be like, well, I know I'm cheating, but I want to see if they.
It's like, do you want to just give me the trophy now and just like,
Yeah, because like we all know what's gonna happen here. Like, let's be honest. That'd be very cool to do. Just with some like fuck you money. Be like, I bought. Wouldn't that be a great YouTube video?
I got sick of
bought
losing
an
an exhaust
LFA
competition.
only to enter it in an exhaust competition. Talk about a great title for a video.
you know, that. God, I wish we can get there someday.
I know. Well, I'm chucking $20 at the lottery every week, so let's go.
You know, dude, some of those, Anthony goes, dude, some of those older V6s sound amazing. The 2.8 and the Fiero sounded awesome with the Ocelot aftermarket exhaust kit. All I'm thinking about is the Ocelot from Archer.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I love that something's called the Ocelot, and I can only imagine the Ocelot attacking Archer every chance it got.
Oh, that was so good.
That was so good.
For a ticket, Doug, thank you for the 100 stars. But yeah, I'm going to go get. Actually, Greg, why don't you either get us into the next thing or say your final thoughts, and then I will go for a rehinging session.
Yes, all good. I'll give you my final thoughts on the exhaust thing, and then if you want to go do your stuff. So for me, like, I don't know. I thought that the GT350 sounded good only because I got to hear it at a higher RPM, and as we all know, like the GT350 is like, I mean, 8,400 RPM, and any V8 is gonna sound nasty. Specifically in the GT350, it sounds awesome, and I knew off the bat it was not gonna sound good from pull away, but once it got up there, I was like, yeah, okay, it's a GT350. It sounds pretty awesome.
That's what I'm saying. Both of those things, once they got up there,
yeah, once they got going, totally.
But guess where you don't live every day?
Right, exactly. I mean, the Mach 1 sounded okay. I thought it sounded nice again, for the same reason. Like once it got going,
I mean, that's
off
a
the bat, it
Coyote
was
thing.
very loud.
That's a Coyote thing across the board. Number one, Coyote's loud as fuck. Once you put an exhaust and long tubes on them, loud as fuck. That's just the way they are.
Yeah.
And they can be a little raspy. And that's why the last thing that really pisses me off is that, like, these guys are being validated for their I straight piped it. Anyone like me, like Jeff, like anyone who understands these motors knows that's a surefire way to make them sound like ass below 5,000 RPM.
Yeah.
And it's just at that point, it's not an exhaust competition. It's a, ha, I have money.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Anywho, continue.
No, that was good. I appreciate that they kicked out the GT500 this year in the top 4, because look, we all know that car sounds insane. It is how my dream modern Mustang would sound. It's bananas how good that car sounds. It's like, for me, that's a top 10 I've ever heard. However, it is an important performance show, firstly being an import show. I'm glad that they got rid of it after 2 years of winning for all import top 3, which is cool. And maybe they did that, and maybe that gives a little bit more, not necessarily credibility, but a little bit more fuel to the fire of your comments of like these judges kind of don't know what they're talking about, because like, let's be honest, that GT500 sounded better than all 3 of the ones that actually got the trophies.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I
here's the
do
thing.
like that they did kick that guy out though, just because like, look, man, we know your car sounds fucking fantastic.
Put new parts on it, or look,
Yeah.
we're retiring. We're retiring you wet, kind of a thing, right? Like,
well, yeah, like
hey,
what I think they should do is
what I would sit here and say is like, look, here's so and so, owner of this blue GT500. It has X, Y, and Z. He's going to kick off the show, right?
Yeah.
He now gets an honorary point, or he becomes an honorary judge, or he get whatever, right? You honor him in some way.
Yeah.
And then it's because like nobody wants to see the same people win every year. Although, if you don't like it, beat it.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah. What I suggested they do is they do it like Zagat does with the number 1 restaurant in the world. When they like review all the restaurants, the number 1, the best restaurant on earth. Once you win it, you're no longer allowed on the list. Like you've won, cool. Get more people in it, get more diverse exhaust notes, things like that, and give someone else a chance to win. Like, and it's not necessarily like the others like can't hack it. It's more of just like, okay, well, you've achieved this goal. Cool.
Right.
You're not allowed to do it anymore.
And like I said, like you have the defending champ come up. Let's get the finals started with last year's champion.
Right.
Doobly in his GT500. Wow, boom. All right, let's get into the show. Let's going to see who joins him in our Hall of Exhaust Fame or some shit.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to do anything fancy. I equate it to, it's going to sound really dumb, but bear with me. I equate it to getting a camo in a game like Call of Duty. When you achieve a certain goal, you have this camo, and some goals are harder than others. And when you get the ultimate goal, the mastery camo, you put it on your gun and you get to flaunt it. You get to flex, right? It's like, I did this. I earned this camo. I won an exhaust competition.
Right.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So they don't have to do anything. What they could do, something simple, is they could have someone film the exhaust comp every year, each clip, and then the winner goes on a webpage on Performance and Import Performance National, 2022 champion, 2023 champion, 2024 champion. And their clip is right there. And now someone has oh, that's cute. I won it this year. Or I won it that year. You have a flex.
Yep.
Which to me, I think is almost better than any trophy. You get immortalized, right? Like, because like there were some people there last year who's like, oh, that thing won.
Yeah,
So,
right.
That's all I'll say about it. Like, there's two sides of it. To me, it's like one of those things where I honestly thought there were cars there last year that sounded better than the GT500. Like, I would
agree with that.
I am not
the
so...
Audi V10 was one of them.
Audi V10 sounded good. Honestly, the car that should have won that competition last year, in my opinion, was the R32.
Yes.
The Volkswagen.
Yep, that thing sounded really good. And unique. It had good tone. It was unique.
Right. It didn't have rasp. It was just that. Because again, if you know cars, you have to dive into a VR. Like VR6s aren't everywhere like a 2J is. It's not like you show up to a drift event and it's like, okay, 2J, LS, 2J, 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 2J.
Yeah.
The two guys running Coyotes. LS,
Yeah.
LS, 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 LS. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and those VR6s sound good because they are a narrow angle V with a straight 6 firing order. So it gives it
that's weird and cool. And they almost sound to me like if a 5-cylinder had an extra cylinder.
It has that pulse to it.
Yeah.
And for the record, they made a VR5.
Yes, they do.
You know, I don't know. I think for next year, assuming I don't have any shit going on, and things of mine don't catch fire, I think I want to approach him and be like, "Look, I want to be a judge. How do I do this?" Oh,
My guess is it's
Are they the same judges from the last 2 years? Okay, well, first of all, take the 3M earplugs out of their ears this year, and we go from there.
yeah.
And
I
hold
think it'd
on,
be
I
cool.
just
See if
saw
it could
here
happen.
that there was an LS and a 2J swapped, separate cars, not like a 2J in the front, LS in the back. Volvo 240 there this year. That is pretty fucking cool, especially the 2J.
Yes, I forgot about that. There was a green Volvo 244, which is in Volvo speak, 240 four-door. So it was the sedan that had a 2J swap to it, and it was green, which of course I loved because I'm weird and love green cars. But yeah, it was cool. I didn't get a chance to actually take a look at it because I only saw it when it was driving in and during the exhaust competition. Like that was it. But it sounded good.
Yeah, so I'm just going to address YouTube real quick. Vic goes, time to kick one of the judge out and have YouTube on. My man, I agree with it. And then we got my boy Miggs over on YouTube. I went to this guy's detailing shop. I'm cool. I went to this guy's detailing shop I'm cool with, and he was PPFing the 150,000 mile Audi with the Urus engine. Shit looked crazy. Well, that's the thing about the Urus. What is it? The Q7 is the same vehicle.
Q RS Q8 or Q8 RS or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Jose over on YouTube has a Volvo question, and that's where I'll take my leave.
I'm trying to get back into my side computer here to answer that question. So it says here IPD tune for Volvo work. I can't say anything good or bad. I don't have any experience with it, so I don't know. I also haven't kept up to speed on if they are any good. Depending on what your platform is, there are other options overseas in in Sweden that you could potentially use. Yeah, I mean, maybe. I just don't know because I don't have any experience with them. What, Jose, my question back to you then is, what is your platform? What car are you running? And yes, Hilton, no answer. I don't really think that he's introducing a lot of new business because I didn't hear from him for 5 months on something. So not exactly the what's it called? The response time I would expect from a top tier tuner in any OEM. I know it's also not his day job, so credit where credit's due there. It's not his main thing. But Jose, what car do you have is my question, so I can potentially point you in the right direction. I mean, the car behind me, if you're not familiar with it, Jose, it's a V60 Polestar. It's a very cool car. It is tuned by Rika Tuning with a Toby Plus Plus tune from Sweden. And it has a downpipe. Like that's literally all it has. It sounds great. It goes like stink. It's a great car, honestly. Oh, here we go. He has a 2017 Polestar X, or wow, words. 2017 Polestar S60 R stock. I want to put a downpipe. Oh, he has a 2017 Polestar S60R stock. I want to put a downpipe. Oh, well, if you put a downpipe on an R, you don't need to tune it. That's just part of that because of how the car is set up. To get max value and max power out of that downpipe, a tune would be necessary. Yes, but you don't have to tune the car if you put a downpipe on it, from what everyone told me on the R forums. So if that's incorrect, someone else please correct me. But that's what I was told. when I put mine on. So I ran it with no tune and a downpipe for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, and then I ended up getting a tune on that car from Hilton first. His stage 2 tune was great. The stage 3 is where we started to have issues, but I was getting the car built anyway, so I just had Steve-O at Rolling Motors just do the tune. So with that said, S60R, I would imagine, I would imagine you're going with it's the P2 generation. I have to ask because a lot of people call the R design the R in the P3 generation and other generations. It's not an R. It's R design. That's why they renamed it. The Polestar S60. If you're looking to tune that, if you're not talking about a P2 S60R, if you're talking about the 2.0, it's the same thing. I don't have a lot of knowledge about tuning those engines or how reliable they are. However, I will say that I have that same engine in my XC90. It's not tuned or anything. It's sort of like the base engine that has both the turbocharging and supercharging. So it's the same engine that's in your Polestar, or if you have that, if that's the Polestar you have, it's the same engine, but there's differences in the tuning. There's differences in how it's set up. I believe it's a slightly okay. He said Jose said is not R. Sorry, it's a Polestar 2.0. So yeah, I believe it's an upgraded turbo from the regular R design version. So I don't know. For me, I would go to Rika tuning for that. I would not say IPD, only because I don't believe that they've tuned their P3 tunes for Polestar specifically. So I would say avoid, only in the sense that I think the P3 tune that they have is for just the regular P3 V60s that are not Polestars. I would look overseas. I would go to Sweden for that. And if you're in the Polestar owners group, which you should be on Facebook, you can ask the question in there about who tunes them. There's a couple guys on there that know. Philip Windblad is one of them. He's the guy that hooked me up with the Toby Plus Plus tune. And then also Matt Leavesley, who's also in that group. He has been doing extensive research into the Volvo platforms over there in the UK. So he should also know who could potentially tune the car. In the States, there's really nobody, honestly. Hilton would be the only one. And considering his response time, I would recommend against that, honestly. So that would be my answer to that. Check in Sweden, because the Swedes do stuff to these cars that Americans don't even consider most of the time, and they would be 100% the experts. So good luck. And if I do hear of anything, I will definitely let you know on a subsequent stream. But definitely get into that owners group on Facebook. There's a ton of good knowledge in there and a lot of good guys, and just be part of the club, which is cool. And I do believe I heard a Chadson in the background.
I have returned.
Cool. And now it is my turn, and I shall return in a minute. So why don't you catch up with chat, and I'll be right back.
Sounds like a plan. What's up, chat? I don't know why I was waiting for like an audio response. Any rate, brain's kind of all over the map. Let's see here. Sean had a moment leaving Dugapalooza. There was a bridge I had to pass under to make a turn at an intersection, and Timmy just threw the ass out, bounced off the rev limiter. Yikes. We've all had kind of moments like that. I remember. I forget if Greg was in the car, but we were driving on the New Jersey Turnpike. Excuse me. Going down to AC to play in, I think, like a poker tournament or something like that. And long story short, there were 4 of us. One of my buddies decided that he was going to start acting a fool. He was a bit of a he he was one of those guys that was always funny, fun to have around, never a dull moment type of guys. But then there were times where like he could take things like one step too far, and it would get annoying. And I remember turning around to kind of swat at him. And this is when I was back driving a modified Focus ZX3, I think is what they were called, the two-door hatchback. And as I looked, right, I'm driving. As I turned, I yanked the wheel, and I had this right tank slapper at probably 65 miles an hour. And I caught it and just kept driving like nothing happened. And you should have seen the space we had for the rest of the trip, man. There was nobody behind us for like a solid 15 minutes. Not not something I recommend. You know, I had a moment in the IS300. I was actually trying to get to where Greg and our other buddies lived at the time for, I think it was a Halloween party, actually. And I was like, I ain't going to be able to make it. You know, it was snowing. You don't expect that in October up here. But it was snowing. And I remember coming down a hill by me. And started going, the camber, and the car just went whoop, 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 pointed straight, and I kept going. That one, I don't think had any sort of, I don't think there was any real skill associated with that. I was just damn lucky. I had done some, but it was the inspiration for me to do a, like, very small, like snowdrift video in that car. I wonder if it's still. I wonder if it's still on our YouTube channel. Let me see if I can find it. Like it was bad. I was like, look, I could be something resembling Ken Blockian type, and yeah, no. Like, no. Let's see here. Videos. Snow. Oh, that just takes me to this. Let's try snow. Videos. All right, here. Let's see here. And Sean was talking about that twin charged 4-cylinder. I mean, a supercharger and a turbo. I was the one I drove. I drove one that was of that a little later generation with twin charging, and I don't remember any sort of like noticeable sounds that were like, wow. But I mean, if you could, I guess an intake or something, more induction noise, more you know, maybe a supercharger whine. All right, we're getting, I'm almost done scrolling. We're to the, still can't believe that. When I had the IS, the videos were like, eh. And then they picked up after I sold it. It's like, where were you people when I had the car? Because I didn't want to sell it, but I had to get the C30. Now, that being said, if I don't get the C30, I don't know many of you. So it's not like, you know, I was like sad or anything. Like I wish it didn't happen because, oh, if I go into studio, there we go. Because like I've said on many times on this channel. The Volvo community was the best part about owning a Volvo, and it was such a cool. It's such a cool thing. It's something you don't necessarily expect to see from. It's not the thing I at that time in my life. It wasn't something I I had only been like cars for the cars, not necessarily cars for the community. Like the community we always had was yeah, that's not here. Interesting. The back in the day, sorry, I was trying to find this video chat. Doug goes, Volvo people make me want to always own one. And I totally get that. Anthony goes 8 or 8. Yeah, because like it's just such a good community. Here, there's me doing a burnout, some golf stuff. Yes. Greg, while I try to find this video, be the entertaining.
We could talk about the car that I sent you the other day. That is deliciously interesting as another opportunity or another contender in my search.
Really?
I mean, yes, actually, because I've been looking into it a little bit more, and it has come to my attention that E63 AMG wagons are now under $50,000, and a lot of them are in the 35 to 45K range. Now, I hadn't looked at these in like 3 years because when I was searching for this, I was looking at them, but the cheapest ones were like 60 grand. And I'm like, no, I can't afford that. There's no way. It's almost double the price of what this was. And, by and large, this is a better value for money because it's going to be a lot cheaper to own. And I'd say it doesn't sound as good, but it sounds damn good. However, E63 AMG wagons are now they're now in the range for this second car. And it makes me think, like, what if I owned like all the hot wagons that were like made? Like, so own that. If I love it, keep it, whatever. If I don't love it, sell it. Get a CTSV wagon. Love that, keep it. Don't love it, sell it. Get a tuned VW wagon. And just like own like all the hot wagons that you could either tune and make insane, or could buy and be insane too. So like RS6 Avant, E63 S wagon, what's the VW, the all track, but you tune it because you could tune German cars to like the nth degree these days, and tune it to like 500 horsepower. Do a modern Volvo build, is that the way then? Because for me, I don't know, the E63 AMG has always been on my list, but to me I've never had it on the short list because it's never been attainable before. Like the RS6 is on my list too, but the cheapest one out there that I could find right now is 80 grand for the States. So that's not exactly attainable, but an E63 AMG wagon is from like 2014 to 2017. So now I'm like, big, twin turbo V8, 550 plus horsepower in a wagon is a very interesting combination.
It goes back to what we were talking about before a little bit. V8, were those supercharged or turbo?
For which, sorry?
The E63.
They're turbo.
So I mean, you have a turbocharged V8 wagon.
Mm-hmm.
I think those came all-wheel drive, did they?
So up until 2014, they were actually rear-wheel drive. Then 2014's generation, I don't know the generation codes like I do with these or BMWs or whatever, but like W121 or 212 or whatever, like is that kind of thing. But it's like the engine code. The 2014 plus models were all-wheel drive.
You know, they look awesome. They look mean. You
Yeah, they
put the
do.
right set of wheels on them, man. They just,
Yup.
you know, it's an AMG, so it's going to sound epic from factory and can only get better if you're intelligent about your exhaust decisions. Don't frickin' straight pipe it. Don't do it. Those are always so cool. I always remember one of the early I think it was like an E55 AMG.
Mm-hmm. With the circle, the ovular headlights, right?
Yeah, and I always remember
Yeah.
that those things were faster both in a straight line and around a track than an SL.
Which is awesome.
Which is
Like,
so
yes.
it's not a sleeper, but it is.
Yeah, like I have a wagon that's faster than the Halo car because at that point it was. Like, that's sick. That's so sick.
You know.
Like now the Halo car is the AMG GT, obviously.
And you're gonna get AMG
but-
GT thrills out of that wagon because of the
Right.
noise.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
it's just-
that wagon is literally a tune away from 650 to 700 horsepower at the crank. You literally slap a Rentec tune on that thing, and it is 600 plus horsepower. I mean, easily.
I
Probably.
love Germans. Rentec, it sounds all this, but Ren is
Yeah.
motor.
Oh yeah,
in
yes.
German.
The Rentec, yeah.
We are motor techs. Thank you for being literal.
Yes, we appreciate your pedantics, Germany.
I
We
mean,
appreciate it.
I would be all in favor of that, and I think being the fast wagon guy is kind of cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially with whatever you're getting next week, because obviously I don't want to spoil the surprise. But obviously what we had talked about previously was, your S550 that caught fire versus like an F-Type. Like, ooh, that's a cool channel thing because hey, boosted Mustang with a manual versus boosted muscle car, essentially muscle GT from Great Britain. Like,
Right. And
that's a cool thing.
And it smashes preconceptions and shit too. Like, oh, it's a
Right.
Jaguar. It's this lightweight sports car. Derp. Mustang smokes it.
Well, right, exactly. But but that's like the cool thing. I also think that
Applies to anything.
fast wagon versus what you get next would also be very cool
Right.
because it's like, well, who's expecting this wagon to be fast? And
I mean, people who
yeah,
know
it does
know
like an
it's
11-second quarter out of the box. So
Well, there's so many angles there, right? Like, people who know that wagon's stupid fast.
yes,
And they know that, we've talked about the cars I was thinking about. We know that those are pretty fast.
mm-hmm.
So there's the, let's say it was my old car. There's S550 Mustang, which is fast, but this Mercedes is faster, but this Mustang is modified. Like, there's a story to tell there.
Right.
I will say this. And unless you had anything else, I will say this, and I think it's good place to close.
Yes.
I think we have reached the stage where you've zeroed in on 4 to 5 different cars. Not different
so, yeah.
cars that are like, one of these 5 cars will be my next car as far as something you're buying. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. You've zeroed in on 5 makes and models. You've zeroed in on 5 cars.
Mm-hmm.
Now you need to go out and drive them.
Yeah, that's the next thing.
Because we're dealing in this would be really cool, and like that Mercedes would be really cool. But what if it's a boat? right? Like, what if it doesn't give you the same feeling in the corners
Right.
as the car you drive now? And then there's
Right.
the aspect of you've always wanted an F-Type. And I know you've driven a lot of these cars,
Mm-hmm.
but you get the F-Type and it's like, man, I'm always looking at it through rose-colored glasses.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was the successor to the E-Type, and everybody was like, ooh, it's beautiful to behold, makes an epic noise, but man, I don't remember it driving like this, right? And then there's like the
Yeah.
SS. It could be like, well, this is basically a four-door Camaro.
Mm-hmm.
And you could drive it and be like, man, this thing has a lot of charm to it, you know. And then you keep going you get back into an E9X M3. You're like, okay, it's exactly as I remember it. This is really cool, but I like this other thing better. I like this other thing better. Like, we're at the point where you've identified the stuff you want. Now it's
Yeah.
to see which one you want. Like, you know,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
not to oversimplify, but like, now it's,
No, you're right.
we're at the nut cutting where, like, no, not that you're buying a next car tomorrow, which, I mean, I think that would
Sure.
be really cool, but you know, you're not.
Yes.
You're not.
No, yeah.
But we're at a point now where it's like you have all these cars, and you've spent time in all of them, none of which was recent. So,
Right, exactly. And it could be going back to that the similar point of the V70R. You know, leave the nostalgia in the past potentially because you have these great memories of the
Well, it's-
F-Type from press days and stuff like that.
I get what you're saying,
And then
but like,
I know I got to drive them again for sure because if I'm buying a car, I got to drive it. But
right.
am I like overly romanticizing a couple of them because
Right.
of
Was
those
it one of those
memories?
things
So
where,
that's
like, oh
sort
my
of
God, when we went to test days specifically back
Yeah.
then, it
Mhm.
was, oh my God, I can't believe we're here.
Yeah. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm driving an F-Type. This is amazing.
No,
Like,
I love the F-Type. Oh my God, there's a Shelby GT350. I would never be able to drive this.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm driving it. You know.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, the Chevy SS is cool. I've never gotten it. Oh, I like it. So, like, you're right. Like, getting them, drive them, and like, I think that's gonna make for a fun summer. 'Cause
Yeah, I
I'll have
agree.
something new that I'm playing with,
Yep.
and then not too far down the road, we're gonna be like one of those YouTube channels where it's like new car. 3 months later, new car. Like, I feel like DD.
Yeah.
But like, no, that's. I will say this, and I think we'll wrap.
Mhm.
I was super excited for you to get your next car and go through the process with you and talk to you and see what you like, see what you don't like. Because again, we are very different. We like a lot of the same stuff, but we're very different in why we like certain stuff.
Yeah.
And then my car caught fire.
Right. Yeah.
And I am still
Light
very
wrench in
and
the spokes.
even in that moment, still very excited for your next car.
Hmm.
But then I started to shop for a car, and
Right.
I'll be 100% honest with you on this one. I didn't get the same joy of shopping for a car this time as I did every other car I bought, even the M3, because it wasn't a I want to and I can. It was a I need to and I have to.
Yeah.
So it took
Different
a little,
scenario entirely.
took a little out of it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love looking at cars, talking cars, like all this other sort of shit.
Yeah.
But even while I was going through that process, I was still more excited for your next car, for your shopping experience, because the wideness of the array of different type of vehicles is such to where it's like Jaguar F-Type, Mercedes wagon, Chevy SS, Lotus, BMW, rod bearing failure. I mean,
And there's the meme.
you know, it's exciting because there's so many different types of cars, and it's exciting because, for me at least, it's not what I think. I mean, granted, there are some overlap in there, like this C6Z, even a C7 with the Z71 package in there. There's some overlap with that. But you're looking at it from you look at it from it's just a fun, different perspective on everything. and I'm really excited for it. And then, but so we'll wrap there. Just a couple quick housekeeping things before we go. Next week, we'll be unveiling the new car. And
Yes.
then at some point after that, we will be doing a Q&A with just our supporters. And when I say we,
Yes.
I mean probably me, maybe Greg. So
Yep.
if Greg's the only reason you watch, I'm sorry. That one is going to be a lot me, or what have you. And that will likely be on either like a Thursday or a Friday. We're probably going to touch on a lot of the stuff, but like I wanted to do something for you guys to where it's like try to give you that perspective of being there.
Yeah.
You know, a quick little something like that. And kind of give you the gist of the first few vlogs before anyone else. As sort of a thank you.
Yeah.
Whether-
No, I think that's cool.
But for tonight, guys, that's a wrap. Thank you to everyone for watching. Thank you to everyone for commenting, for liking, sharing, all that sort of fun stuff. We cannot thank you guys enough. We appreciate you more than you'll ever know. But for this one, that's a wrap.